Thank you for joining for today's session. We have a mock interview session and EMA session with engineering managers. Let me introduce, first of all, we have Jeff Sink. He's a senior engineering manager at Iterable, and Roman Balakin. He's a senior QA manager at MFour Mobile Research. So how we gonna do today? We have a structure, and my name is Evgeny Kim. I'm the host, obviously. So we're gonna talk today about the QA requirements, about the QA job, what it needs to be to have, like, to be able to go for QA engineer jobs. That would be the first one. And the second one would be also talking about how you can evolve and how you can advance your career, right? Yeah, maybe Jeff, do you want to answer this question first? Maybe, like, what do you think needs to have a QA engineering in nowadays?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll give a quick background on where I've been doing QE for about 20 years. I graduated from UCSD CS degree, came out during the recession, so there was no developer jobs, and I kind of was either unemployment or QA, so I took QA, and I somehow just stayed in it. And I've seen it transition from back in the days there wasn't very strong automation, testing was very much manual, unit testing still wasn't like really a thing, to hey, if it's manual testing, let's just ship all the jobs to India, Pakistan, and China, to that doesn't work, we can't offshore it, so like, hey, Selenium is the answer, right? To nowadays where you'll see kind of two camps of QA, right? Like the traditional like QA, where you have this big, corporate companies that need a lot of QA engineers to test, right? To more of this new age, like what does QA should be? Like what is a more lean, agile QA? That kind of my analogy is Salesforce used to have a ratio of 4 to 1. Now it doesn't, right? Like now you see companies with no QA or very little QA, or maybe 1 or 2 QA. So the ratio is 1 to 30. Now, the changes I do see, though, is before, if you look at like the Radoff report or, the industry, state of industry, QA analysts or QA engineers would not break, you're lucky if you break 120, right? But the flip side is nowadays you see like the top end QA engineers, they can easily break 250, right? Depending on what skill levels they are. Like I know a few like head of QAs, lead QAs, staff QA engineers, and they're making that number up there. And I think the evolving, look at it is it's not necessarily like, oh, if you're an estet, you're going to make more than a QA engineer, right? Oh, if you are a pure automation engineer, you're always going to make more than, QA analyst. I think, the transition is, these engineers that can balance, not just the technical acumen of testing, but they can also understand what we call QA operations, right? What is the infrastructure of CI, CD, how does QA build into it? How do we manage that, right? The reasoning is a lot of startups, with capital, they don't have, their engineers aren't necessarily the ones building the CI, CD systems, right? Maybe they have one SRE, maybe that person left. So a QA engineer that can manage the CI, CD systems, incorporate the testing with it, right? Incorporating the programs and processes to, help you ship fast and well, right? And at the same time, have that EQ to kind of train, coach, and work with leadership to kind of describe what quality really means, are those like 1%, 2% engineers that are hitting that 250 right now. So I think it's a huge change, right? Before it used to be like, hey, we're part of a team, we're a part of this cycle, right? To now it's like, how do we run our own programs to kind of encompass not just technical, but programs, KPIs, and, deployment velocity.
Roman, what do you think?
So that's actually some very interesting points, Jeff. And I am too noticing the same trends, but I would say that what I'm seeing within the industry is those trends are mostly specific, as of right now, at least, to very few companies, mostly, I would say mostly in the Bay Area. At the same time, there's still quite a few companies, older companies, bigger companies, sometimes startups as well, who are just trying to establish their QA on some acceptable levels. Like, they are not looking to still to maybe have the tests run in the CI pipeline every so often.
Yeah.
One of the very interesting trends that I'm noticing, by the way, I think it's pretty much everywhere. So before, we would have more of a split between manual QAs and automated QAs, right? So that there was like one or another. And now I'm seeing it's mostly hybrid QAs, and I think that's perfectly right. So basically, it doesn't matter how you're gonna test and how you're gonna get there. You have the goals as a QA team member that, so these are the products we have to cover. Those are the types of tests we want to have, and that's it, right? So it doesn't matter how you're gonna achieve that.
I think you hit out of the park. But the thing that what I'm trying to get at isn't necessarily like today, right? This is the way it is. What I'm trying to get at is I've talked to a bunch of founders, a bunch of CTOs, right? And I asked them like, well, what is your testing paradigm? Like, oh, we ship manual testing off to, Europe because, it takes 2 weeks to release because we don't have engineers to do manual testing. Oh, I want to bring in a leader that can improve our automation. I want to do this hybrid thing. I want to up-level my engineers to be more hybrid. I think the problem that I see here and what we're seeing a trend, and when I'm talking about trending is the industry as a whole, is your CTOs, your head of engineering, they don't know quality. They don't understand what it means to deliver with velocity. To them, it's like, is my customer upset? Is my incidents better? Right? But what I'm trying to get at is if you let the head of engineering tell you what quality means, you're going to fail, right? Because what does he know, right? If you're starting to come into this field and you're telling people, this is what you need, this is why, this is how you're going to build your program, these are the things that you need to be thinking about. Sure, today, maybe hybrid. Tomorrow, when you scale, you need to have a CI program. There's no way you're going to scale and win if you don't. How do we start intelligently building it in and scaling with it? And this is my role. That's where you see, those high ticket engineers, right? And I think that's what I'm talking about, up-leveling, right? Like as a whole for QAs, we need to get out of this idea of being told what to do and more of, hey, this is the service that we can deliver. This is why we should do it. I'm going to help you scale. This is how we scale there.
Maybe can you guys explain what engineers should learn in terms of like, let's put it this way. First, when they going to start their QA journey, right? When they just moving from one career to QA and another one, what do they need to know in order to advance, right? To being a high ticket QA, a high ticket engineer. So let's start with the beginning, like maybe because it's also very crucial, and a lot of people, they're concerned they start learning a lot of things at the same time. So I think this is the main problem in order not being focused, right? What do you think, Jeff?
I think there's there's probably three things actually allied that you should be focusing on right off the bat, right? One, I think is the SDLC. What is the QA process in the SDLC, right? What are the trade-offs, right? Like, for example, test planning, right? How do you strategize on a release to make it successful? And what can you trade off versus what should be done by the book, right? I think it's good to understand the correct things versus the trade-offs versus what reality looks like. And I think that's kind of a split of at least knowing the basics versus seeing it in action. The other thing, is like I said, automation, right? Like, do you understand how, like, basic automation, right? Do you understand how that works, what the value is, how to do it, right? And I think the third thing is kind of vendor management, vendor tooling, right? Like, do you understand how Circle CI, Travis, Jenkins, how that works against your, testing? How do you tie it together, right? Do you understand like the concept of Docker? Like, where do you spin up your environment? If you were to say spin up something like, say, you need to do load testing. Do you understand how to use different tools, how to spin up those images, right? That's not necessarily something you'll learn in college, but it's like being exposed to these ideas, understanding what the config looks like, understanding like if you use Terraform, why you use Terraform, right? How does, where do you find an EC2 image, right? Understanding those three things, right, allows you to up level in each category.
Yeah. Roma?
Well, I would agree, of course. The tricky part, I think, here would be that, for in the beginning of your career, Jeff, everything that you said sounds amazing, but it would be pretty tricky, right? To be comfortable with all that stuff. And that's actually a kind of a tough question, because there certainly are a lot of pieces that it's good for the QA engineer to know. I would probably because the thing is, so every company has their own sort of sets, has their own setup. They have their own tools. They have their own pipelines. Everything is a little bit different, right? So I would probably start with a particular company and then try to up the skills in the stack that they're using, essentially, and then you'll probably notice yourself naturally evolving from there.
So Roman's probably like, this guy's crazy. Like, there's no way in hell a baby engineer comes in here and be like, oh, I know how to use Terraform, and like I can spin up 17 EC2 instances and parallel run things, right? Like, obviously, you're right? What I'm trying to say here is, what I see from like baby engineers or new QA engineers, they come in here, they're like, okay, your sprint starting, I'm going to do my work. I'm going to write my tests, regression tests, like help out, end of release, right? And that's my job, that cycle. And if you're in that cycle, you're never going to break out, right? What I'm saying here is, when you come into a company, say you're like, SDET 1 or SDET 2, right? You should be looking at these three areas. How do I improve my QA program, right? By making it bespoke. How do I make sure my automation is good? And at the same time, how do I get more involved with the CI system, right? Even though everyone's CI system is different, no one does it same, right? Some people deploy 5 times a day, some people deploy once a month, right? But understanding how that works, how the vendor management works, right? Understanding how like different tools are out there being sold to you, what should be used, what shouldn't be used, allows you to tell that story that when you move upwards into another company or in your own company, you can kind of move that direction because you understand how those things work. And what I don't see a lot of is new engineers like trying to do that, right? They're like, oh, it's SRE's job, it's not my job. No, if you want to be like top 5, 10%, you need to start learning that, right? Because that's where you should be.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
I also think that it's fair to say, because it depends also on the company and on the industry, right? So from my experience, when I used to work at the gaming company, right? So yes, we had testers who were just, working on the test cases that they have, regression tests, a lot of regression tests, right? And we had analysts who supposed to know how to get into the system, how to build the build, using Git, using very, I would say, in beginning of the terminal, like not really sophisticated, but good enough in order to navigate in the system. And also it depends, like, for example, when I used to work at digital agency company, right? They didn't have this version control system. Instead, I mean, developers, they had it, but QAs, they had it environments instead, right? So and that was a mobile web. And you just go to specific URL link and you test there, for example, right? So yeah, if you're stuck in this company, you probably won't know that much or won't learn that much in terms of like terminal, how building the Docker container. But
Mhm.
in startups, it's very common in the startups, right? Startups, SaaS companies, uh, microservices. This is like you must. You won't be able to do anything if you don't know like how you can, for example, run the container, right? Kind of this thing.
But the thing is, more and more startups, right? A lot of these startups, they don't have QA, and they're more and more as they scaling up and they're successful, they're getting to the level C's, D's, right? They're raising money. Suddenly, the board wants to know, what's your strategy for quality? How are you organizing this? Right? Who's running your quality program? How are you thinking about this? And where are they going to find quality like leadership? Right? It's going to come from the ranks. It's going to come from people who started off as analysts, who are doing some manual testing, some basic testing, right? And my point is, I guess, if you want to up level into there, right, this is how you want to start. And those positions are opening up, right? We're seeing more and more companies, maybe even like bigger companies, they're like, okay, we need to rethink how we're doing quality. We can't just, ship a bunch of money off to a few people here who send a bunch of tests off to, Europe or Asia, right? Like that's inefficient.
Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, maybe you can give advice to potential startups who may look into our session. If you would start a QA in your startup, what you should do first? I mean, should you hire just a QA engineer or hire actually a QA leadership,
So
lead?
I mean, so, Rohan, I apologize. I don't mean to dominate all this time. You want to go first? Or
Yeah, it's all good.
Cool. So that's an interesting question because that's actually what I do, right? I don't know if you purposely did that or not, but I actually started 2 QA programs from scratch, meaning no QA, come in, drive QA, right? I think the things to understand is that when you are building a QA program, right, you need to tailor that program to the engineering org in that company, right? So understand, what is the problem? Why did they decide to hire you? Right? What is the board upset about? Where's the quality issues coming from? They don't randomly decide, hey, I'm going to drop a couple $100K on a QA person when we didn't need it before, right? So there's a reason why you get hired. So understand that. I never come in saying I'm going to hire. That's the first way to get fired, right? Because hiring someone's expensive. So where's my ROI? Where's the justification, right? So come in, immediately understand, what are the issues that you have? What should you be solving first, and what brings the highest ROI? And those usually break into 2 categories, right? It's either the program wise is bad, right? AKA there's no guidelines, people are just doing random things, they're deploying randomly, there's no adult in the room, and that's your job. Or the process is good, but the automation is broken, too flaky, too slow, velocity is bad, right? So how do you fix that, right? How do you improve the testing? How do you improve the libraries, make it useful, right? Tied together, you need to have a really strong story of KPIs, metrics, right? How do you determine if you get hired, you're actually making things better, right? Is your change failure rate improving? Is your MTTR improving, right? Is your quality normal ratio improving, right? How do you show that what you're doing is improving? And from there, you can scale.
Yeah, Roma, what do you think?
I think one thing to add to that. So depending on the size of the company, depending on the size of the project, the goals per se. So if, for example, that's a startup, the product is evolving constantly, meaning like there are constant redesigns and things like that. So maybe it would make sense to just get QA person when the objectives are crystal clear. So like we just need someone to support the releases per se. That's it, right? That's the only goal. Yeah, a QA person would be sufficient for that. If, like Jeff said, you are building a strategy, building a need someone who not just builds the whole QA team, but builds a team that's going to support quality moving forward. Then of course you need someone who's familiar, who's done it before, who's built things like that in his career. And yeah.
All right. So, and another question would be like, there are certain people who don't like coding, or like, there is certain QAs who are not enjoying doing this, right? In terms of coding, I mean, or being that technical, being that 90%, top 90%. So what is what are their choices? Do they have in the career? Can they move? Yeah,
that's a great question. Yeah, I can take that. Well, like in 2022, I think there's no more question like, should you automate? It's not a question anymore. We all understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way. Like, you have to have automated tests. But at the same time, so the good news for all those people who and I've seen a lot of people who are good, who have the right QA mindset, and that's very important, of course. But at the same time, they don't really want to learn programming. They're not good at it. So yeah, there's an answer. Obviously, there are more and more low code, no code tools on the market. They are getting much better in the past years from what I've been seeing. So for example, like one tool I'm working with at the moment is TestRigger. So it's essentially, they went so far as to, you don't have to know any programming at all. You don't need to have like any weird models like Gherkin, those like, no, it's just actual plain English, and you create those tests and you execute them on the cloud. So even all the infrastructure hassles are taken care of for you. And that's pretty impressive. So there's a path for those people to sort of become what I was saying in the beginning, hybrid engineers, where you have the option to actually test manually and create robust automated tests.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. My assumption is that if you are like, I don't want to code, but you're in this industry, you're obviously a subject matter expert. Like, you know the product very well, you know the idiosyncrasies, and you know how to test, or you know the right thing, right? Low code is coming, right? In general, it doesn't make sense to have complex, like Selenium is slowly dying, in my opinion, because it just sucks. And you have developers who are paying like $200,000 a year that's supposed to be building something, writing Selenium, right? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? So you'll see like Playwright, Cypress, TestRigger. Apparently, there's a gajillion new tools out there that are meant to be low code. But the thing is, testing isn't about coding, right? Testing is about logic. How do you suss out the right thing? And that's not something that it's not a 1 or 0. It's like, what strategy are you implementing? Now, I will say the danger though of being analyst engineer and you're not coding, right, is you're susceptible to who is managing the vendors, who decides if we want to use this vendor or not, right? No tool is just magically works. Like, they need someone to turn on, they need someone to pay the bills, they need someone to integrate with your system so that it actually works. And if you don't have that, or they cut it, you're in trouble, right? So I like to say, like, if things are going well, you're safe. If things are going bad, you're probably the first to go. I would, look at what you love, right? Like, if you really, really love testing and you absolutely don't want to code, right? You're what I call a terminal engineer, right? You're done. You're never going to improve. Why would I ever pay you more, right? Because what you do is, that's it. You have no more growth, right? And you have to understand, like, am I okay with being terminal, right? Some companies are pretty safe, like they're never going to go under, so you're fine. You could live there forever, making whatever you make, healthcare benefits, work-life balance. That's fine. If you want to grow out of that terminal role, right, you have to ask yourself, what can I do to make myself more valuable? Since I can't code, maybe you're just expert at tooling. Maybe you know how to run these tools. You admin it really well. You can get away without, you can run other people's scripts. You can get away with it well. Or maybe you lean more on your EQ side, right? Maybe you're really good at talking to people. You're really good at working with people. Maybe you're really diligent. You can run programs, right? Maybe you transfer to technical program management, right? QA technically is part program management. You're managing the quality cycle in the SDLC. Maybe you can take on some more stuff, right? So that's kind of where I'd see it.
Yeah, that's a great advice. That's a great advice. All right, guys, I think we covered pretty much good stuff today. And the second part would be mock interviews with anonymous candidates. We have 2 candidates. While we're transitioning that, I want to announce that we are launching with several hiring managers the program. We call it Rebase. So the program that built around actual QA jobs. Since we are doing mock interviews, and meetups, we're networking with a lot of hiring managers. And actually, that was also a part of the question, like why a lot of graduates from boot camps and in general, they not able to get a job. So we're trying to answer this question. So since I also work on recruiting domain, we partnering with several hiring managers who are actually willing to get people without experience, with prior experience, but have some technical background and participate in our program, and then they will consider them as a candidate. So the biggest challenge for all graduates, I think, for right now is getting the foot in the door of the company. Companies, it's just because of huge demand supply ratio, a lot of boot camps right now, and it's very hard to get into the companies. So we're trying to solve this problem, and I'll post a link in our chat. Welcome to join. It's a pilot program, so we're in development mode, and we're gonna start. So sign up for our news updates. We'll update it you via our email. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions later on. And Roman is also in a part of this program. Jeff, I hope someday you'll be also part of our program, but we'll be partnering with you as it is. Anyway, that's a little announcement. Let me send you a link right now, really quick. If you haven't heard about that, please. Okay. Now, we're gonna have 2 candidates right now. Give me a second. 2 candidates. So if you haven't been in our previous mock interviews, the way how it works, it's anonymous mock interview. So we'll give a feedback, and Jeff and Roman will conduct the interview as they do in a real work, right? So consider this is the first screening or the first interview with a hiring manager. Candidate should answer just start with 2 questions. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your last project. And then Jeff and Roman will go with the follow-up questions. And by the end of this session, we'll give a feedback, honest feedback, like what could be done better and what actually was good, right? All right, I think, give me a second. Candidate number 1 we have. How are you?
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, awesome. can you share your resume with us? With your share your screen?
Okay.
So yeah, and first of all, I want to say thank you that you decided to participate in this. I know it's very stressful. I know a lot of people probably would like to do this, but it's intimidating, I think. So, and yes, and this is why we're doing this anonymously. So, you know, I enabled you so you can share your screen with us with your resume. Do you need help?
It's allow Zoom to share screen, and I said yes, but it's giving me this system security screen.
Ah, okay. No worries. You know what? Let me share my screen then. Let me open. I have your resume.
I select you.
Yes. Did you select me? I don't see it.
It was on.
Actually, never mind. We have it. We have it. Give us a second. Okay. Let me open it. Let me put it here. And I'll share the screen right now. Okay, guys. Are you able to see Jeff, Roman?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool. All right, candidate number one, let's get started then. Please tell us about yourself and your last project.
Well, I'm from a banking background. I'm from Sri Lanka originally, and I moved to US, and then I got in contact with the Protect Consulting. They helped me with the visa process, so I've been there till 2017. And then I had some issues again with the visa, so I had to quit that job, and I moved to Deluxe. That's in the entertainment industry. So I've been out of coding for a while, but then again, I during the COVID period, I took the boot camp program for Coding Dojo, and then I completed. Then I had that interest again for coding. But since I've moved a little longer in the media field, I thought maybe it would be best for me to start with QA and then learn from it and move back up to become a front-end developer. So in 2021, my manager, he moved to a different company, the Blue Digital Group, and he invited me to join to build a new team there. So I kind of lost track of being a front-end developer at that point, and then I moved to this new company, and I'm pretty much stable there right now, but I still have that interest in coding, so I thought I would pursue that dream again.
All right. All right. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about your current company where you work at? Or
it's in Burbank. It's Blue Digital. What we do is we do the post-production work, like adding dubbed files, closed caption files, QC-ing the video qualities. And right now what I'm doing is my core job is to work on iTunes packaging. iTunes packaging is we get different media files, audio, video files from different studios. Scale on a scale like they're relatively small organizations compared to Disney and Warner Brothers. Back in Deluxe, I had all the big companies working with Deluxe, but this is relatively a small scale operation. What we do is that is iTunes spec, so we got to make sure when we deliver streaming videos, features and TV shows to iTunes, they are up to a certain standard, and we make sure all the metadata is included in the package with all the necessary assets, audio, video, and closed captions most of the time. In addition to that, one of the reasons I joined was to broaden my knowledge on the field. So my manager gave me that chance also. I worked with some Disney work also. I've worked adding different asset files to Disney features. And I also had the opportunity to work on, they have the system to add commercial breaks on their TV shows. So I was able to work on some of those files also, but my core job is working on the iTunes side as a packaging and a QC operator.
All right, awesome. Jeff, Roman, you wanna go with the follow-up questions?
And my question to you, Eugene, would be what kind of technology can I learn myself to start as a QC engineer? Because I see a lot of openings, but they ask for 5, 6, 7 years of experience on this, that, and now I hear you guys say Selenium is kind of dying away, but I was thinking of learning about Selenium, and now you say that technology is kind of a technology in the past. So I want to know what technology can I look into, because with my previous experience as a front-end developer, I worked at JP Morgan. The system they had was Blue.js. That system was inbuilt. It's not open to the rest of the world. So to learn Blue.js, you got to be in that organization. Likewise, I don't know, some companies might have technologies inbuilt that's only work in their environment. So I don't know. I'm not familiar with the systems that could be useful and what's available outside to learn, maybe in YouTube or other sources.
So I'll kick it off. First off, thanks for volunteering to do this. It's a scary, right? Coming up here, kind of exposing yourself. So I appreciate it. First off, before I answer your question, I want to give quick feedback about your resume. Just reading it off the bat, it's not clear what tech stack you use. Are you coding? Are you manually doing this? You're using a lot of buzzwords that, let's say if I work at Blue Digital, I would understand. But as a hiring manager from an outside company, I have legitimately no idea what you're really doing here. Right. And I bring this up because you ask questions about hey, is Selenium good? Is Selenium bad? What should I be doing? But it'd be helpful to understand what's your background. What is your tech background in Blue Digital? Are you using Python to, pull out XML files? How are you utilizing iTunes testing? Is it a script? Is it a manual app that you're pushing buttons? What is it?
We just use Switch to play the video files, and we manually just add the closed caption files and just do the QC. This is nothing technical about it. It's just when it comes to coding, what I do is I just manipulate the XML metadata. That's all when it comes to coding. It's nothing related to developing or software.
Okay. All right. To answer your question about Selenium is always a fine place to start. It's free. It's easy to use. You can test it on your own homepage. And if you can do Selenium, you can use Cypress, you can use Playwright. You can pretty much do any of the, any of them, right? I think you learn one, you learn all. The feedback I would have well, generally, we kind of ask questions, but in this case, I'm just going to give you some feedback on your resume first.
Okay.
I think, the first one, like I said, is it's kind of confusing on what you do. Like you use a lot of buzzwords, but it doesn't tell me like, is it translatable? Like, let's say you're trying to apply my company. I don't see how this is translatable, right? Because it doesn't like, is it some special tool? Is it not? One of the examples is completed all, your tested functions debugging using JPMC inbuilt framework, right? To me, it's like, did you just run it? Did you run the script? Is it an app that is in-house from JP Morgan Chase? Instead, I think you should highlight, I developed JavaScript, and which allowed me to execute automation using JP Morgan Chase's inbuilt framework, blue.js, right? To me, that shows, okay, this guy does code, right? The other thing, I like to say, if you ever come to these, is you really should be using, the A to B to C framework, right? The A to B to C framework is, what did you do? What was the, like, why did you do it? What did you do? Sorry, what did you do? Why did you do it? And what was the result, right? So, for example, Blue Digital Group, you could say like, you needed to, validate, this, and you completed, 50,000 tests, per quarter, which resulted in 100% satisfaction rate passing forward.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
At least to me there, as, a hiring manager, I can see, okay, I understand why you did it. I understand how you did it. And I can see the results from what you did.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, everything's on point, Jeff. Great, great comment. So one main question that I sort of was asking myself when listening to Kenneth one. So first of all, what are your goals? So like, what do you want to do in the say next few years?
I want to become a front-end engineer. That's my end goal. I thought it would be a good point to start with the QC position and then develop my skills, and with some experience, I could move into a front-end developer role again.
Yeah, so those paths are a little bit different. So when I'm talking about like learning, getting like a deep dive into automation, just automation, learning new tools such as Selenium or anything else, right? Or go into front end. So I think you should really think of it yourself first, and then it'll become a lot clearer what are the next steps you need to take to get there.
What paths should I take, like if I want to be in the QC side?
Actually, so Roman kind of hit it out of the park. I actually didn't pick up on that, Tonell, so thank you, Roman. He's absolutely right. If you want to be a front-end developer, going to QC is like going backwards, right? Because you potentially could, front end, like you can start writing your own web apps. You can go on like, those you can go online and find contracting positions to build it, and your portfolio, right? In your portfolio, you can show off potential, hiring managers like, hey, here's, like I worked on this app for this company as a contractor. Here I know the elements, I can do React, I can do Node, blah, 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 right? Those are easy to find, right? And you can easily catch on, and then you're a front-end developer. Going to QC, QA, whatever, you might end up at a hybrid job where they want you to do Selenium for, half time and then manually test. And what does that have to do with front-end development? So, like that is a good point. I think you do need to be honest with yourself. Where do you want to go?
Okay.
And with all seen that perception when some people perceive, QA as a stepping stone into development, which I don't quite agree with that. I don't think that's right at all. It's also a big red flag, honestly, for most QA managers if you're trying to get a QA position. So those are just like, some points to keep in mind.
There's nothing wrong with doing QA or QC. At the same time, you have to think, say you're Roman, right? That you have one headcount and the guy's like, yeah, I'm great, but I don't want to do this job in 2 years. I want to be a developer. In his mind, he's like, I have to train you. I have that 6-month ramp up time. I have to pay your health insurance and you're going to quit on me. Like, do I want that? Right. So.
Yeah.
No, I thought of QA QC because that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Then that's what I've been doing since 2017, and I was thinking to myself, coding is much harder, so QA QC is not that bad. Like when you were talking like about the new technologies and stuff, I was thinking to myself also like, QA would be a much better path, but like that's what I had in mind, like eventually to become a front-end developer. Like,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's what I did before, but.
I think all we're trying to say is if you're going to go into an interview, don't be like, I want to be a developer, but hey, since you're hiring QA, QC, like sign me up. Like that's generally.
I get your point. Yeah.
I will say, one of the questions you asked is like, what could you do right now, right? From what it sounds like, you're working on a lot of manual testing.
Yes.
One of the things that you could improve on is on your own, right? Seek out ways to start automating your job, right? Like how can you automate yourself out of a job, right? What can you like experiment on the side to maybe do some of the stuff, without, having to manually do it. And there are definitely ways, right? That kind of side experiment while getting paid is how you up-level yourself and how you pick up new technologies, right? You can partner with developers and be like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think I should start? You can go online and be like, how do I automate this, right? But the idea is like right now, today, you're doing some clicking. How can you just click a script, get coffee, come back, send the report to your boss, right? That's the journey to begin, but you can also utilize that in your resume building by saying when you apply, like, hey, I was at Blue Digital, right? We have to run X amount of manual tests, but I automated it using Python or JavaScript or some vendor. And by doing this, I saved X amount of hours and we've completed this much ratio. That's a beautiful A to B to C story, right? And that shows you have capacity to use tech to improve a current process. You understood what you did and you're able to do it, right?
Thanks for that. Yeah. Okay, understood.
Okay, I think you already got handful of questions and the feedback.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, let me add you one more thing. Based on your resume, totally what Jeff said. It's very hard to understand what you're doing, and obviously you have to have 2 resumes. One is for if you want still stick to QA, then it should be QA focused. And if you want to get into web development, so you have to customize your resume for web development.
Oh, okay, understood. Yeah, that's one.
That's one thing. Another thing that you're using a lot of real estate on additional experience, and yeah, it's I would say it's valuable, but it's not that valuable to use it like 1/3 or 1/4 of your 1-page resume. So I would remove like those bullets because I already understand, okay, you've been assistant manager, it makes sense, and customer service, you don't need to explain me like what you did there since you have 1-pager, right? Instead, I would more describe clearly like your grandma would understand what you do at Blue Digital and what you did at Deluxe Entertainment. Those experiences are the most interesting for recruiters and for hiring managers as well, right? And since you are putting technical skills in the bottom, I would explain how do you use those technical skills in your job instead of like, okay, do you know this just aside or actually you've been using it?
Okay.
All right, because that would be all. And Good luck
Actually,
with.
one last thing. Sorry, since
Yeah,
Adil's not here. Adil's one of the senior engineering manager at Chow Now. He's our good
Yeah.
friend. He
Yeah.
would be upset if I didn't point this out. Candidate one, I know you're volunteering to be here. I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just trying to make you better.
Okay.
Your QC, you cannot make QC mistakes on your resume. Like if I read your resume, things that have to be capitalized should be capitalized, like Jira, right? You capitalize in the bottom, but you don't capitalize it inside there. That's a straight up, like if I'm a hiring manager that cares, to me, it's like you're QC, how are you not QC your own resume, right? So make sure no spelling errors, capitalization is correct, formatting is correct, the right terms are correct, because those things jump out to me.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Adil always brings that up. He's not here today. I gotta do it. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a good one. That's a good one. But yeah, candidate number one.
Thank you.
I mean, we wish you best of luck. And yeah, totally. If you want to get into web development, just build your projects and you should be good. You already have this experience. I don't see any problems. But you know what? Yeah, let's talk this offline. I may help you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more candidate number 2. Give me 1 second. Promote. Okay. All right. Candidate number 2. Are you here with us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, candidate number 2.
Hi, everyone. I would like to say thank you for actually having me today, and it's gonna be a great experience for me. I'm first time in mock interview, and I'm a little bit excited and nervous.
Yeah, totally fine. Do you
be
want
nervous.
to?
We don't bite.
Hey, you know what? We're all nervous. So yeah. Do you want to share your resume with us?
1 second.
By the way, meanwhile, Roman, Jeff, we have questions in the chat. Maybe do you want to answer them in the chat or maybe after? Let's do this. Let's stick to mock interview right now. And in the end of this session, we'll answer all your questions that you have in the chat. Sounds good? Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. All right. All right. Candidate number 2. Yes, please. Tell us about yourself and about your projects, your last projects or educational projects.
Yes, I'm candidate 2, and I recently completed a STED bootcamp, and I learned a different kind of software automation tools, and Java is my primary programming language, and I use also a Selenium WebDriver to automate the front end, and I also develop my current framework based on page object model. We also learned Cucumber, and which supports PDD with JUnit testing framework. And I'm also, I have experience using TestNG, and I'm also familiar with data-driven testing. And we use Maven as a project building tool in order to centralize the dependencies and build a project structure. And we've done like different variation of testing, such as smoke testing, regression, functional testing. I'm also familiar with Agile Scrum, Jira, and writing the test cases based on requirement and accepting criteria. I practice different kind of real life projects, and I'm also, I think, I can also build a framework from scratch. Even though I don't have the real job experience, I'm always eager to learn and outcome any challenges. So besides my technical skills, I'm also good team player and also independent and quick learner. And I can also say that I like consistently improve my skills. Maybe I'm even perfectionist at some point and responsible person. At this after like a graduation, the boot camp, I still decided to learn more skills. I also attending some other courses to learn API, like backend testing as well. Also, I do have experience in API, but I would like to improve my skills. And right now, I'm looking for a job, and hopefully one day I will be working as a QA.
I have a follow-up question. So since you are very new and you are a QA as that bootcamp graduate, what was your previous experience like? What did you do before?
Yes, I was in a totally different field before. I was doing a real estate, and later, everything is going online right now. Even I just wanted to adapt the new requirements of the life. I just wanted to also test my skills. Also, I don't have any technical background, but I wanted to learn something new, to do something new, and it also gives me the confidence starting from zero. And I think that so far I'm doing a good job, and I actually wouldn't believe that I will be able to learn all this stuff, because within 6 months it's really too much information. And but I can confidently say that I managed well, and I'm still I'm not stopping, and I'm still continue learning.
All right, that's awesome. Jeff, Roman?
Jeff, go ahead.
You don't want to go this one first? I feel like I always kick off.
I have too many questions. Don't know where to start.
I'll be quick then. First off, like I always said, candidate 2, thank you for volunteering. This is actually very helpful, not just to you, but to all the participants. You get to see. I'll let Roman ask more deeper questions. I just want to cover a few things about your resume, and then I'll let him kick it off. First off, great. I really like how you highlighted the technology stack that you understand, right? It's very clear, you're using Cucumber BDD correctly. So that's a start. Gherkin's there. That's good. You didn't put that somewhere else. So, it seems like you actually understand what's going on. The things that I would improve on, well, first off is you always want to tailor your resume to the job that's being you're applying for, right? So if you're applying for some job and they're like, yeah, we want Selenium, this and that, you want to make sure that you tailor your resume to that. Right now, it's kind of a blank resume. It's not tailored to anything. 2, because you don't have work experience, you kind of went to boot camp, you should try to tailor, what you test and why, right? For example, I tested a web app, React web app, and we took, the requirements from acceptance criteria and translated it into Gherkin using BDD, and then executed X amount of tests, validated that we got 100% passing, right? To me, at least then as a hiring manager, I can say, oh, okay, I understand why you did this, rather than just a laundry list of things that you know how to do. Right. So, for example, let's say you learn APIs, right? You're like, oh, validated the endpoint, or validated that response time was under this, or validated the jot token worked when I use this, right? To me, it tells me, oh, you actually understood why you're testing it and how you're testing it. So giving those contexts inside of your projects helps me understand, oh, okay, you had a web app. Oh, yeah, you had a microservice system, and then you tested the BDD for each versioning. Oh, wow, that's cool. At least that helps me understand what you can do or can't do, right? And lastly, if you're just starting off, but you had a previous life, I always say it's okay to include your previous life. Just like, for example, you mentioned you used to be in real estate. You know, it's okay to include that, but more so what skills were you in your previous life that translate well to, you know, future, right? Like, oh, I was a manager. I managed 3 people. You know, I'm very diligent paper, you know, like I can do, you know, very, very diligent, you know, I was successful in launching this, right? Seeing those skills and like, it's a kicker. Like if I have 3 people the same in previous life, you're like, oh, you did all these things. I can see how that translates out. That's not just tech, right? It's also the EQ, the human side. And that's important too. So don't be scared to include that if it's valuable. I wouldn't include it as like, I sold houses. Like, okay, great. But it's like, oh yeah, I managed a team of 15 people. We made X amount of money because of my initiatives. That shows that you're thinking that you're able to take projects and do it. And I'll turn this over to Roman.
Thank you, Jeff. I totally agree with you. I haven't put this resume online yet. I was just waiting for this mock interview and to see, like, also to get your opinion about my resume. I actually wanted to also include there my real estate job, but I didn't want any recruiter to call me for the real estate reason. So I was just thinking, okay, how I can just connect this together. But I will take your advice, definitely. Thank you.
Totally, yeah. And to add to that, I think it's there's not really an easy answer when it comes to past non-relevant experience. Because from one point, especially when for people, for example, where you're supposed to have at least, say, like 20 years experience in your life, and then the first maybe 10 years are just completely blank. So the resume starts somewhere in the beginning, so it's really confusing for us, like what happened prior to that, right? So I think it is important to very briefly cover what you did before, and yeah, try to think as much as possible, like what are those previous skills, how can they help you on the current position? So what, yeah, any relevant pieces, great. And then so same goes for just a little piece of feedback. Same goes for some grammatical mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't do those. In terms of, so another thing for your resume. Sorry, was that an echo? Okay. So another thing for the resume, I would remove the piece where it says detected GUI elements using locators, because, well, you're talking about building test automation, and you pretty much cannot do that without being able to detect locators. So it's kind of obvious. That's why I wouldn't focus on that. What else? So probably expect questions regarding very specific things that you've done. For example, I can ask you something like, please tell me more about how you use BDD and page object model, right? So what were the biggest challenges there? How did it look like? Tell me more.
So how I use BDD?
Yes.
Well, actually, we use it. It's like a BDD is more like a behavioral language. So we use it with Cucumber, and we have like I have, for example, test runner classes over there, and where like I do like for smoke test and regression test under this runner, and also I have feature files. some it's like a feature files where I store my scenarios, for example, and I use it in a Gherkin language. And then we have also like a step definition package. Over there I have like step definition. I have the like classes where I implement every step for the, for example, for the future file. And I also generate a method using the dryland. Then I have a page objects. Over there I also store web elements inside this page classes under the page package. So usually I use that this find by annotation to store the web elements. And so those are the, I also have like a Cucumber hook class, and I use over there like a before and after annotation. So that's like a, basically that's what I remember that I was doing.
Sounds good. Let's see.
So
While
it's
Roman's
like
thinking, I want to tag onto that question, Canada, too. Do you, why would a company decide to use BDD versus, you know, not using BDD?
Well, I would say that it's more like a it's first of all it's a language that even technical, non-technical people can understand. We use again like a Gherkin language, and it's designed to test application behavior like from the end user. For example, we already include the requirement and you know, writing the test scenarios and scenario outline. So I think it's easy to understand.
Okay. When would you not want to use BDD?
One more time, please.
When would you not want to use BDD?
Okay. Well, like for example, I think we cannot run their like a parallel tests. I think. I mean, when we use the actual data, when we can like provide the data, then we wouldn't do the BDD because we need to provide the data. Because I think it's more like a maybe because of the if the communication between the user and so maybe sorry, yeah, this one maybe it's like a BDD is making them maybe it's not like a too detailed, and that's why we wouldn't use it.
Okay.
We don't have the too much detail.
Sorry, Roman, I didn't mean to hijack you. Go ahead.
No, not at all. It's all good.
By the way, it's okay to say I'm not sure or I don't really know.
Yes, yeah, I'm not sure, but I was just thinking whatever came to my mind. I was trying to kind of remember, but yeah, I'm not sure right now.
Yeah, don't take pressure at this moment, like, you know. Do you guys maybe want to go with the feedback? Or if you don't have any other follow-up questions?
Roman, do you have anything else?
I think I'm good.
I want to follow up with what I asked, why I asked you that question. I think the thing about boot camps is they teach you a level of skill and how to do something, but in real life, that doesn't mean you should be doing it, right? The BDD is great for certain instances and it's terrible for other instances. To be fully transparent, most people do BDD terribly and it's slow and it doesn't, it gets in the way, right? So if you're a new engineer, you come to a company like, oh, BDD is what I learned, we're going to do it this way. You know, like there's a danger, right? So for anything you write on your resume, right, my expectation is you can tell me why you do it, when you do it, and what are the limitations of why you shouldn't do it, right? Because you're saying, I know how to use this tool. It's like if you're like cooking eggs for me and you're using a spatula, right? I'm like, why'd you use a spatula? Why not a spoon? Why not a knife, right? If you really know how to use it, you'd be like, well, yeah, spatula is flat, knife's not, right? I'm gonna scratch my plate. If you can't tell me that, that's a huge signal that you don't understand what you're doing, right? So it's okay if you don't know, but make sure that the minimum you should do is everything on your resume that you write, right? You should understand why you did it. Why did you use BDD, right? Why is cucumber, right, versus water versus something else, right? Why gherkin? What's the opposite of gherkin, right? What's good? What's bad, right? And why should you do this, right? If you can't tell me that, it's like, I don't know why you're even doing it. So the last good question I like to ask, you know, for people who use Selenium, you know, in generally like, well, yeah, it's great, you know how to use Selenium. What's the negative of Selenium? What is the, like, what are some things that could go bad that cause it to fail?
So,
right.
Yeah, so what's negative for the Selenium? I think that with Selenium, there are a few things that cannot be automated, number one.
Yeah.
For example, Selenium, I think it only supports the web-based applications. For example, you cannot do the mobile testing with Selenium. Also, there's a tool for mobile testing that looks like similar to Selenium, but you cannot do that. And also, well, I think it's also kind of challenging to set up the like in test environment.
So if I asked you, how do you deal with flaky tests? What would you say?
How do I deal with what?
Flaky test.
Okay. How do I deal with them? Fake test?
Flaky.
Flaky?
Not robust. Like if you want to make it more robust test, like what would you do?
Or, you know, if I can water it down. What are some common cases of flaky tests from Selenium?
So it's I think it's mostly like maybe unstable. I think if, for example, your browser crashes, it can affect your test mostly. So that's what it can happen.
Okay. So yeah, so in general, you know, what I would expect is you can tell me all the positives, all the negatives, and how you deal with them, right? Or why you would do one versus the other, what the business trade-offs are, right? So the flaky test one, for example, right? You mentioned caching could cause, you know, you're basically trying to validate something that it's not there because it's cached. Maybe it's slow, right? Maybe your timing's off, right? Maybe it's not, the element's not there, so you can't find it, but the element does load later, right? These are things that if you actually use the product daily in and out, you should know. So make sure you're comfortable with those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Roman?
So to sort of sum it up, which touched a little bit on this already, but again, so for those types of resumes where it's mostly for all roles actually, but more so for junior roles. So there would be two sort of areas of questions, right? So one large chunk is what Jeff covered, where you have to have an understanding how it works, why you did it, right? So that's very important. And the other piece, of course, would be getting into the details of the project. So you worked on the specific project, you use those tools. Tell me more about it. right? And it's also, it becomes pretty clear, I would say, in the first like 20 seconds, the level of knowledge, like how comfortable you are with these tools, with those frameworks. So being prepared for each of the bullet points, essentially.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. That's why I was mentioning in the beginning that I'm still trying to learn and taking more courses, and I know which one, what area is my weaker area. I'm kind of like trying to improve whatever is the things that I'm missing. So, and that's why I didn't put on my resume too many stuff, because I wanted to make sure that I know once I will be confident, then I will start like making my actually start like taking the interviews and going to I will be on market and being in real interviews.
No worries. I mean, we're not here to pick on you. Remember, like, I think what Roman and I are trying to do is give you some insight into what managers look for and what they would ask, right? So the real big takeaways here, right? It's like, how do you improve your resume, make it a little bit stronger, right? How do you make sure you're very clear on what you did and why you did it, right? And then, how do you kind of, when you do get into a person-to-person interview, how to take a deep breath, not spiral, make sure that you're able to, ground yourself and move forward. I will say one thing, more does not mean better. Someone gives me a resume, they have like 500 things on a resume, but they can't in depth tell me about them all, is usually a red flag. But if someone that has 4 things on their resume, but they know every intricate detail about those 4 things and why, to me, that tells me they know that tool well and they can do that job if I hire them today.
Thank you.
Definitely. I want to give some feedback as well. Like in terms of resume, like your resume is even it looks more technical compared to the candidate number 1, for example, right? But obviously, candidate number 1, he has advantage that he has experience, so he can defend his experience probably more clearly than in your resume, right? So being said, as Jeff and Roman, you need to be very, like, especially for all graduates, you need to be able to defend each word that you put on your resume. If you're not sure what you're talking about there, I would suggest remove it until you understand it. Otherwise, it's going to be, you will fall on the trap, right? When during the interview, someone will ask you like, oh, how did you do this? Or like, what did you do this? Why did you do this? And you cannot explain this clearly. That's a big red flag. So just remove whatever you are not comfortable with, or like try to recall or like practice, right? But yeah, I think even right now, what we do with a mock interview, it should help you to gain more confidence in the future. Anyway, thank you very much, candidate number 2. I wish you good luck with
you.
your, give me 1 second. Wish you good luck with your job search in the future. And actually, we have a question very similar to you. Does a paralegal job have any relevant experience? And again, like what Jeff said, it's applicable to Natalia, to your question as well. So explain, so what QA is actually means, right? It's what are relevant skills you may have? Well, obviously, attention to details, which is a very critical part, right? Be able to test and notice things that regular users probably won't. And I think real estate agent, I assume, I don't know for sure, but you can maybe explain that more clearly, right? What did you do, and how was your, for example, attention to details relevant? But don't say like I was paying attention to details. Explain it, right? Show the picture, like, oh, I've been reviewing documents such and such, and I don't know. Same thing to paralegal jobs, right? I think it's extremely should be also attention to details. Maybe technical, maybe you were using software, some software that you need to know, not just as a user, but maybe a little bit more. Yeah, I think Jeff, Roman, can you give some advice here too to Natalia and all other people who are doesn't have QA experience but have some other?
Yeah, I think I just echo what Roman said, right? Like if you're a hiring manager, you know, we want to know your story. Like who are you, right? Obviously we're looking for, you know, do you fit the relevant experience? But there's also that like gray area of like, do you have potential, right? Because sometimes potential trumps like some experience, right? You can kind of, especially if you're newer. What I would look for, you know, like the big gaps is confusing. So like, why did you have a gap, right? And then like, what were you doing before? And then if it's not like, you know, like if Jenny says, it's not about like, oh yeah, I was a, you know, real estate agent, I sold 50 houses, I was a paralegal, I looked at papers. It's like, what were the like, what makes you a better engineer because you worked there, right? Like, you know, how did you win at this company? What skills did you use to win, right? Were you like, what processes did you include? Programs did you do? What kind of people did you lead, right? And how does that translate over to some of the, you know, soft skills that engineers need?
Yeah, definitely.
And we actually have a somewhat relevant question here from what I can see. So what if essentially the person's asking, what if you have less actual experience than is being asked on the job description, right? What can you do with that? My personal advice would be that you should still apply, first of all, because many times the company is saying we're looking for a minimum of 3 years. It doesn't really mean they're actually looking for minimum of 3 years. What are we trying to say by that? We want to find a person who is comfortable with what they're doing. And that's really hard to get typically, right? From a person who just started yesterday, so to speak. So it all boils down to your experience, how comfortable you are with the processes, how well you know how it works, and not necessarily the number of years on your resume.
I've actually never, like all the jobs I applied for are like 10 years. Like I don't have that. I just got it. The secret, like I said before, is you need to match your resume with the job description. If the job description says A, you should have examples of you just like you doing A better than everyone else, right? Like I said, you know, your resume is your story. It's like you're telling me about you. I should be able to read it and within 30 seconds see A, then B, then C, right? So if I say my job, I need you to do A, right? Your resume should be like, yeah, I've done A because I know why you want me to do A, and this is the result C, and you should hire me, right? If you can show me that, by the time I get to like how many years you're doing it, as like you've done it, right? There are tons of people out there who are seniors who I would not hire because they have no relevant experience. You could potentially have it in 2 years because you've done all of those and you've succeeded. But what I need to see from you is you did it, you know why you did it, and how did you succeed? And those numbers pop out to me, and that's when I want to talk to you.
Yeah, let's guys wrap it up. So we have questions like how we can participate in and how we can prepare. Guys, pretty much the same thing how you ended up here. Go to our Meetup page. On the Meetup page, you can either get into the form or, fill out the form or join the Slack for the next mock interview, which will be in October 22nd. We have available 2 spots. If you want to participate as a interviewee, please hit me up either in the Slack or fill out this form and I will reach out to you. Anyway, guys, Jeff or Roman, thank you very much. Thank you for participating. And I'll see you next time in October 22nd, guys. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.